Hi, I'm Sonya. I'm Scott's sister, and this is my interview.
So I asked this to mom,
hmm
and it's a question that are on a lot of people's minds. Did you suspect anything? Did you suspect anything revolving my sexuality?
the short answer would be no. But the longer answer is once I found out, when I went back and thought about things, it made sense because you hadn't said the same things that Russell had growing up, like noticing girls and making horrible comments when you were younger about boobies and things like that. But I didn't notice that it wasn't happening. But in retrospect, I noticed that it hadn't happened. So it made sense.
Okay, so when I first came out, when I first said the words that I'm
hmm
gay,
hmm
what was your reaction?
Well, initially it was funny because of the way it came out. Um, I don't know if I could go into that here, but like it was because you had contacted me and said by email that you wanted to talk about something. And so I knew it was pretty serious, and I thought, oh, I have no idea what this is about, and I was all worried, and all these things are going through my head, and I had no idea what you could possibly want to talk to me about. But I figured, and in talking with Joe, I was like, well, it has to be about a girl. Like it has to be something like he has a crush on someone or something's going on with a girl. So I went over to talk, and that was the first thing I said. I was like, so is this about a girl? And you were like, no. And so just joking, I was like, is this about a boy? And I'm pretty sure you either said maybe or you were like, well, actually, and that's when I knew. And so it shocked the heck out of me because I was just making a joke. So I had to process it for a couple seconds. But yeah, it was pretty shocking when you first said it. And then, of course, you explained in words like, yes, I'm gay and da da da.
So the first was shock. What
Yes.
was the first negative thought that you
Um, I don't know. It's hard to say because the first thing I did after sort of getting over the shock was what I later found out when I went and read all the stuff about what you're supposed to do when someone comes out to you, it was all bad stuff because I was like, well, are you sure? And could this just be a phase? And I asked all these questions just so I knew what I was dealing with. Like I wasn't sure if it was something you were just thinking about maybe or whatever. I found out later, of course, you were obviously, you'd thought about it for a year or more on your own, so you were pretty damn sure. And so my first thought was, okay, well, maybe it's just like he's just questioning things, because I know a lot of people in general go through this questioning period when they're teenagers. Um, and then I wasn't sure quite, and then I was all like, okay, from your answers, you seemed pretty secure in what in who you were and know this is it. So then I started asking all those questions like, well, okay, are you like a girl trapped in a boy's body? And do you like to
had?
wear girls' clothes? Because I didn't know what I wanted to know exactly what you meant, right? And you just were like, no, what are you talking about? You're like, no, I'm definitely a guy and I'm okay with being a guy. I just like guys. And I was like, okay. So once I knew that, I was like, okay, that's cool, whatever. And I think that was pretty much my first like I had to figure out exactly what you meant when you said that you were gay. That's
So in
was
other
my
words,
first
for
thought.
people that don't know,
Yeah.
I told you we didn't
Yes.
have a lot of time to talk that day
No, it was like
because
very
it was
brief.
on
Yeah,
It was on
yeah,
Russell's birthday,
yeah.
and we didn't talk until a week later.
Yeah.
So you spent the week after I told you
Yes.
reading, basically.
Yes, I went to work the next day and I did like no work and I just spent the whole day on like the GLTB website in Ottawa and I was doing all this research about coming out to people because obviously I knew that the next step would be coming out to family and friends and everybody and so yeah, I just did a lot of reading and I went to and I got books from chapters. Like I looked up a bunch of books and figured, okay, I'll get this one and this one looks good and yeah. But to go the negative thing, should I the first negative thing that I probably realized that I was thinking about was how um, your life would be different than I had pictured it for you. And I was really concerned about the negativity that you could potentially and will probably get from other people. So that was the first negative thing I would have to say that I thought about because like obviously, you know, things are a lot better than they were 50 years ago, but they're still not where they should be. So,
Now, it was you and me that planned the coming out
yes, it was.
to Russell, to
hmm
Joe,
hmm
and Russell would tell Sam, and then we would tell our parents. What was going through your mind
hmm
when we were planning that, and the days leading up to telling mom and
what was going through my mind? Well, we had done a lot of research, and I had sent you a bunch of, pardon me, links about, coming out to your family, coming out to your parents. And mom and dad always told us growing up, if any of our kids was gay, we would love them just the same, and we'd want to know, and all this stuff. And you're like 99% sure that that's how it's going to play out. But there's still that little chance that maybe when confronted with the reality of the situation, that they may react, even if just at first, differently or not as you would expect. So I, even though I didn't like anticipate that, I still had to sort of be ready for that, like ready for an initial negative reaction or an initial like the same reaction I had. Well, this could be just a phase, or it could be, like just that whole sort of denial part that happens sort of right away when you first hear. So I had to kind of ready myself for that, and you know, I never really sort of envisioned what would happen if that had happened, but I obviously would have had to been ready to sort of jump in and take over the conversation. Like I let you do the talking because I didn't end up having to do talking until I brought out the books I bought from Chapters, but that was prepared to do that. So I guess that's what I was thinking.
So, what were you thinking before you told Joe and before you told Russell and Sam, or Russell told Sam, but
Mm-hmm.
before you told Russell, before you told Joe, was there the same sort of feelings, or were there a little bit different, maybe a little bit more concerned, a little bit less?
Um, I would have to say more because Joe and I, when did when did you come out? That was in
That was in May, a couple
May.
2007.
Yeah. So it would have been the year that Joe and I met, right? Because yeah, so I mean, by that point, he and I were fairly serious. Like really serious. I think in May, like, we were obviously moving in together, and so I would have to say I was probably pretty worried that if he had a negative reaction to it, which I didn't really think he would, but if he did, I was worried because I thought that could be a huge problem. Like if for some reason we'd gone 6 months and he totally hated gay people and I didn't know it. I mean, I wasn't anticipating that reaction, but if it came out, that might be an issue, right? In terms of him and my relationship. Luckily, obviously not the case at all. Like he had never suspected and he didn't have a problem with it. Like it turns out when he was in college, he had gay friends. So like it was not something that he was I both not used to and he was totally fine with it. So that was definitely probably yeah, that was probably the person I was most concerned about telling simply because there was so much else at stake for me personally.
Yeah, so much
Um,
more of a risk.
yeah, exactly. More risky. Russell, I wasn't too concerned. Like I figured he'd be cool with it, and he pretty much was. Like so,
Right
he was
off the
all just
bat,
like, yeah, like
yeah.
whatever,
Let's keep playing the game.
Exactly. He was playing a video game, and he totally didn't even miss a beat or anything. It was pretty funny.